of hell? Like, what is, what is this? And they told me neither. They told me neither. And I said, well, what is this? And they said it was multiple realities. And they said, this is just the reality that you can handle right now. Okay, because I like to be outside and things like that. And so I asked him, I said, well, where's heaven at? You know, because I'm asking all these questions. I'm forgetting that I'm not alive. You know what I'm saying? At this point, I'm not even thinking about that. And they said, heaven is up to one's own, I'm trying to say it the way they said it, to one's own mindset or perspective. Hell, he said, what you call us hell. They were male. They weren't human like us. They looked human, but I could tell they were not human per se, but they had masculine energy. That's the only thing I could tell you. And they said, you know, how you exit the reality is the reality that you create, basically. Okay. So I was just looking, I said, well, who else is here? You know, because in that moment, I was the only one there in that moment. I was somewhere and nowhere at the same time. So like I describe it. And I said, well, can I see somebody else is here? Because I said, the reality I came from is just people there. So they showed me two people. They showed me a man, and then they showed me a woman. The woman was sitting there reading, and where we were at, you know how we had the sun and the sun shines and stuff like that to give the light and stuff like that. There was no man-made light. Okay, there were either life forms that automatically, that was their makeup with the light. That was actually their makeup, or either it was like a twilight, but it wasn't from the sun. That I'm trying to explain the best I can. Okay, I had to get one of the AIs to help me. They're helping me write this now. Okay, so she was reading a book. I said, okay, so if she reading a book, this and that and the other. And so I saw what I thought was like little fireflies. They're not fireflies. That's what we look at them as down here. But there, I didn't have a seeing impairment. So I could zoom in without binoculars or a camera or whatever. You don't have impairments. I didn't have impairments. You know what I'm saying? So he said in his impressions, because he wasn't talking to me like this, he said they like to read too. But the writings on the book was nothing I've ever seen, like nothing I've ever seen. I've never seen nothing like that before in my life. Okay. And then the guy, he was just laying in the iridescent mint, I guess, grass, and was just doing like the, you know, when people lay in the snow and they do like the angel thing. He was doing that. And I was like, well, what is he doing? He's like, that's what he likes doing. Basically, you know, they were like, that's what he likes doing. So at that point, you know, I'm kind of looking around, touching the bark on these like trees I've never seen before. The closest thing that I can think of is those trees that you see in Singapore, but it doesn't justify the kind of tree it was because, as I said, it doesn't exist here. So I'm walking around, and I said, well, what about the people, you know, that thinks hell is real and all that stuff? And, you know, they kind of looked at me. I said, the bad people, you know what I mean? I was like, the bad people. So they stopped and they just looked. And then they walked up to me and put their hands over my eyes. And I was standing in again, it didn't have the aesthetics of my reality. It was like, it was somewhere and nowhere at the same time. Every place I went was somewhere and nowhere at the same time. That's the only way I can describe it, family. And there was, I saw, the way I saw it was, there was a bubble. People were in bubbles. That's the only way I could describe it. They were like in a bubble, like a bubble type thing. And some people were just sitting there in the bubbles, like solemn. Some people were like punching the air in the bubbles. Some people were crying in agony, and then some people were smiling and exiting the bubbles. Okay. And I asked, I said, well, I said, so this is what hell looks like. This is what hell, this is hell. I said, there's no fire, all this stuff. And what they relayed to me is it's not there, it's not a hell. It's not a hell. They have to trade places with everybody they did wrong. Okay? In other words, that you live your aspect of it, your perspective of what you did wrong to somebody else, and you have to live their perspective at the same time. All right? And then you are your own judge. That y'all, listen, when I tell you this messed me up so bad, you are your own judge. That's what's, and the thing is, when I thought about it and I saw what I saw, y'all, I'm here to tell you, I said, damn, I wish there was a God on the throne that was judging me. Because when you're outside of your body, you're not distracted with the social construct of your environment and your body. You're not distracted. And that's what kind of keeps people from facing themselves. It keeps people from dealing with how they've treated people, et cetera, et cetera. So I say, oh, this is their judgment. I'm thinking it's judgment because I'm still thinking with the narrative of mine the reality I came from. They say it's never judgment, it's always growth. That's what they told me. It says never judgment, it's always growth. And once they get done, and once they deal with how they're going to deal, once they deal with it, then they're ready to move on. That's what they told me. And I asked him, there was one particular man, and he was just pacing and pacing and pacing. And I said, so in that bubble, he's in that reality plane. He said they play it over and over again. They play it over and over again. They play it over and over again. And I said, what? And I said, well, how long has he been, in that bubble? I'm asking. So they looked at one another, and then they looked at me, and they said, there's no concept of time we can give you to process how long he's been there. I said, what the hell? Okay. So I just was looking at these different people, and from my perspective, they were inside like this sphere, but from their perspective, they were actually in the reality of the things they didn't deal with when they was here. Okay. That's the only way I could describe it, family. Okay. And so I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. So they brought me back to the tree that I touched. They brought me back to that tree. When they brought me back to that tree, they didn't say anything, but I already knew that I had to make a choice on whether or not I was going to stay or whether or not I was coming back. All right. So of course, y'all know I chose to come back because I had unfinished stuff to do, things I needed to. I was tempted to stay. I was on the fence, and they just stood there and waited. They just stood there and literally waited. And so at that point, I chose. I said, "Well, I have to come. I have to come. I need to come back." I said, "Because I don't want to do this again." All right. So long story short, I went. It felt like a tunnel, and there were the little creatures that was over that lady's shoulder, that was reading the book with her, they accompanied me like beside me on my shoulder. And I didn't know they moved that fast because they were floating around, looking angelic and stuff, but they moved fast. I don't know if that was used to bring me back. I don't know, but they moved so fast that their lights looked like strings beside me. And the next thing I knew, I was meeting my body. I was coming towards my body. I sat up in the bed. I saw my body come erect in the bed, and my mouth open, and I went through my mouth. Okay. And that was the first time that my family had a response from my body. Okay. So that was the second time. The third time, I was in an abusive marriage. and he was going through like the bipolar thing, or the what do you call it, uh, post traumatic stress from the war he had came out of, because he was in the war in the 90s. And I was 9 months pregnant, and he had an episode where he thought I was the enemy and hit me with the car at 9 months pregnant, left me in the middle of the street, 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And so where we lived was probably about 1.5 miles away. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm in pain. So I'm having to crawl back to my home. All right. And so I remember sitting on the side of the bed. I wasn't bleeding, but I was in excruciating pain. And the same guide that I saw prior showed up. So at this point, y'all already know I was in between. And he said, if you close your eyes, he told me if I close my eyes, you're going to exit. You're going to be exiting, basically. I'm just paraphrasing it. He said it much faster than what I'm saying now. And I didn't give a fuck. I closed my eyes. I didn't give a fuck. I had went through so much. So at that point, it wasn't a gradual thing. It wasn't where I saw, okay, I saw my body leaving, seeing my body left behind. I immediately showed up at this. The only thing I can say, it was like a foyer in the middle of somewhere, again, that was nowhere. And I said, well, where am I at? And there were other people that were there at this point. There were other people that were there. And so at this point, I'm still transitioning out of religion. I'm like, okay, well, I must be in the forest of heaven. Them little gates, I got to get back past the gates. That was my mindset. So there was these podiums that was made out of a stone that I've never seen before. And so I walked up to one of them, and there was the same kind of guy that was behind. They just have this angelic, outer worldly. They look human, but you could, like, if you were to sit them in a setting on Earth, you could tell that even though they got eyes, nose, mouth, hands, feet, you can look at them and tell they're not from here. You can look at them and tell. So I say, hey man, I've been living right. This is what I'm saying to him. I've been living right, and I'm just ready to get past the gates. I'm tired of the bullshit I'm dealing with down there. And he said, down there does not exist. I said, what do you mean? He said, there's no down there and up there. It's just here. And I said, okay, so where's here? What is here? He said, all the people that you've seen has been a reflection of you at one time or another in the timelessness of time. That's what he said to me. And I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't know these people. He said, if you're here long enough, you'll see they're your reflection. I said, okay. I said, so what about past the gates? He said, you already passed the gates. And I said, well, where? I said, okay, well, what dimension I'm in? Because y'all know me. This is just who I am. He said, you're in the 4th dimension. And I said, 4th dimension? I said, well, where the hell is that? He said, you're here and there at the same time. Here and there at the same time. Now, mind you, I'm still in religion. I'm going to church. I'm doing all this stuff. Okay? I'm dedicated. He said, there's a saying that you all are fond of. And I said, well, what is that? He said, so as a man thinketh, right? He said, you didn't know that your consciousness is a place too? And at that point, I just didn't want to talk to him no more, because he wasn't lining up with my beliefs and my narratives at that time. And so I kind of walked around, and as I'm walking away, he said, you'll see your reflection again and you'll know this is real. I said, what do you mean I'll see it again? I was like, I'm going back? And he never answered me. So I go walk over here to this damn table. There's some guys sitting around the table and stuff. And I'm like, hey, they black, just like me. So what's up? But they were in spirituality. They weren't in like Christianity or nothing like that. They were in, one of them was in Ifa, the other one was in mysticism and stuff like that. They didn't even believe what I believe. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, why the hell are they here? Why the hell are they here? You see what I'm saying? So they're talking to me, this and that and the other, not knowing that they represented the path I was going to go when I left Christianity. I had no idea, right? So I'm talking to them. They were like, yeah, we got to go back. And then when they said it, they just kind of smiled at me. Little did I know I was looking at the forecast of the future that represented the milestones that I had to walk through in spirituality. I didn't even know, y'all. And the other thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to calm down, is the fact that what I realize is how you leave this reality and the narrative you have in your mind, that's how it's going to play out when you exit. That's how it's going to play out when you exit. So however these people's reality was, it played out as they exited. So whatever belief you hold on to, that's why I don't want to exit believing nothing. I want to know, because you can't know and believe at the same time. It's impossible. I know that's my mother. I don't want to believe that's my mother. I know my husband loves me. I don't want to believe he loves me. You can't know and believe at the same time. So when you're exiting the plane believing, you are the co-creator of the reality that's going to exist when you get on the other side. Literally. And it completely dismantled my mindset, you know what I'm saying, and everything else. I came across other entities, which I'm not going to go into that because that'll be a whole nother conversation. I came across other entities. It wasn't just people in their family. Did y'all hear me? It was not just people in there. There were entities. Y'all seen that movie? Y'all seen that movie Men in Black? And you remember when they went in the foyer of the area there?
Yeah.
They put the truth in plain sight, literally. And so I'm going to stop it right there. It goes further, but the point I wanted to make was I was a full 100% grounded, 10 toes down believer when this happened to me. It wasn't, and I was living right. So I wasn't living all jacked up and stuff. Y'all was living holy for real. But when I crossed the other side and I got the proof, facts, and receipts saying how long I was dead, y'all, it wasn't what I thought it was. And that's what sealed the deal for me. A lot of stuff, I'm looking at this comment down here. A lot of stuff that they've shown y'all in the movies have been the absolute truth. That's where the truth is at, family. Because the stuff I saw, I've seen this later on down the line in movies. I've told a couple of people this story. My family knows it. And something will come out and say, girl, I need you to look at this, man, because this describes what you was telling us years ago. It's crazy. They know. So those are the incidents that I want to talk about in public. I'll come out with some, I guess you could say, memoirs of the anomalies that accompany that. I'm just giving you guys bits and pieces, but that's what I saw on the other side.
Okay. And you know what? I do wanna say I do appreciate, give you a little round of applause. Because I know we are about to shut down in a few, but I'm glad that you was willing to share those experiences, because some people, they'll deem it to be a little personal, whatever the case is and stuff like that. But I'm glad that you was able to share that with us, because Yeah. I'm glad you was able to share that with us. And there were a lot of things that you said that I have looked into back when I was like 21, 22, and I was doing like a lot of occult knowledge, a lot of studies in occult
Yeah.
knowledge and stuff like that in terms of the afterlife and what happens. A lot of the stuff that you mentioned, I made I made correlations to three different shows. The first show was American Gods. The second show was
Oh,
Lucifer, and the third one was this show that I had just recently watched. Unfortunately, they took it off of Netflix, but I think you can try and find it on YouTube. But it's called The Preacher. Um, but each
really?
show, yeah. So each show showcases like heaven and hell, or different depictions of the afterlife. American Gods, I love how they depict it based upon kind of like how you was talking about like your consciousness. Um,
Yeah.
and the wait, did you see American Gods?
I read that when I was a kid, bro. Like the book is much better. I read that
Okay,
when I was
okay,
a
okay.
kid, but when I got quote unquote saved, that they say I put away what childish
Yeah.
things. But
Mm-hmm.
like I was able to I talked to entities, I talked to fallen angels, I talked to Lucifer, bro. I mean, I'm just gonna put it all out there because it's gonna come out anyway. And what I found out, the craziest thing is, I was other people were just upset, crying, and they were just ready to get. I asked questions. I don't give a damn what reality I'm in. And the craziest thing is, I had an experience at 9 that same year of a man walked up to me, but I didn't know who he was. He told me his name, but at this point, I've been indoctrinated in religion and things like that. But it was Lucifer at 9 years old. And he walked away and he said, "She's not ready." That's exactly what he said. So when I left out my body, he visited me again. And I was like, "How can you be pretty and handsome at the same time?" That was the first thing I said, because at that point I recognized who he was. And he said, "You got questions?" And he said, "I'll give you some of the answers, but not all of them." And literally, like, I sat down, spoke, talked. I said, "Listen, I need to know this. What's up with that? What's up with that?" And then not only that, he sent me to certain libraries, y'all. I lie to you not. He sent me. This is why I have my mystery school right now. It's closed right now. We're on like down season.
You talking
But
about
he
like
sent
the
me to
Akashic records?
no, no,
Oh, something
no,
different.
no.
Okay.
He gave me addresses and sent me to certain places. I had went to the Library of Congress. That's in DC, right? And I
Okay.
asked the
Yeah.
lady
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
certain book. Asked the lady for a certain book. And the lady looked at me, she frowned. She said, "Who?" She said, "First of all, how do you know about that book?" That's what the librarian said. And then she asked me,